On a quiet, freezing, snow-covered morning off the Interstate 94 in Montana, a car would be found engulfed in flames, and the mystery surrounding it is still very much unsolved. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Dexter Stefonek. Viewer discretion is advised. Dexter Stefonek was born on January 31st, 1918, and he spent his entire life living in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. By 1940, he had met the love of his life, Vivian. And I guess he liked his ladies a little older. She was 35 years old, and he was 23 when they got married in 1940. Dexter worked most of his adult working life working for the Rhinelander paper mill. He and Vivian would go on to have one child. His name was David, and then eventually he would give them 2 granddaughters. Dexter and Vivian were the best grandparents the children could possibly ask for. Vivian was the absolute apple of Dexter's eye. He was madly in love with her for the entire 44 years they were married. Sometime around 1978, Dexter would end up retiring from the paper mill because Vivian had fallen a little ill, and he wanted to stay at home to take care of his wife. But sadly, in the winter of 1985, Vivian would end up passing away. Dexter was just unbelievably heartbroken. He was devastated. He quickly fell into a depression. At some point during the year that she died, David, who is now a full-grown adult with 2 kids, he was living in Corbett, Oregon, and he invited his father to come stay with him and the family. So Dexter, he made the trek out to Oregon. He actually would end up driving there. He made the journey in his little Plymouth Horizon. It was a car that he had for several years. It was a very reliable vehicle for Dexter. David and his wife, when Dexter finally got to Oregon and was with him for about a week or so, they were really trying to convince Dexter to, come stay with them. Please come move out to Oregon and, be around family and spend time with your grandkids. Dexter, by all accounts, seemed to be considering this giant move. But by November of 1985, it was coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Vivian's death. And it really just sort of brought back, all of the memories and, the good memories, but also the sad ones, because of her passing. And Dexter just really wanted to be back at his home in Rhinelander, where he spent his life with his wife. So he told David that I'm going to drive back home, and this is about a 2,000-mile drive. David tried to encourage him to please stay. It was already winter in Wisconsin, so everything was just covered in snow, and there really wasn't a whole lot he could do out there anyway, but Dexter still said, I need to go home. David eventually begrudgingly said, okay, but please, along this drive, if you have any inklings of turning around and coming back, we are here for you with open arms. We want you here. On the morning of November 19th, 1985, around 10:30 or so, off of the I-94 in Montana, and specifically, this is at the Bad Route rest stop. Yes, that is the actual name of the rest stop. A small vehicle was found completely engulfed in flames. There was no one around the vehicle, and it was basically the only car in the parking area of the rest stop at the time. Police and fire were obviously called. They got out there, and they noticed basically the fire was from the inside out. So it was started on the inside, it appeared. After they finally got the flames down and gone, they were able to run the plates. and the vehicle belonged to 67-year-old Dexter Stefonek. There was no body found inside the vehicle, and after their investigation, they did determine that the fire was started deliberately. The fire marshal was able to determine that the fire likely started in the back seat of the vehicle, and there was at least a can of gasoline doused all over the back seat. So this was an arson, and this was a fire that was set for what purpose? It's not really known at this time. Police would search the entire surrounding area, and they found no bodies. They found no signs of foul play outside of the burning vehicle. The personal belongings of Dexter were not found in the vehicle. His suitcase was gone. Nothing was in the car. They kind of had to figure, well, did maybe Dexter, for some reason, set this fire himself and then just flee? Who knows? But then why on earth would he do that? Because there was no signs ahead of time of he intended to run off somewhere. In their investigation, they came across an interesting little tidbit of information. Back in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, Dexter had started seeing a significantly younger woman. They found out that Dexter tried to propose to her. And they don't know if this was just this was just kind of part of his depression, and he just couldn't be alone, or whatever the case may be. They weren't really sure what was the mentality behind, the younger woman for him. When he proposed, she politely declined, and she stated it was because, the age difference is just too big. I actually don't know how young the woman was, and that it just wouldn't be possible, the family probably wouldn't approve of this. So they began to wonder, police, could this be related to why his car was set on fire? Was there someone in this woman's life that maybe was upset when they found out about, the existence of this much older man, Dexter, in her life? But through all of their investigating, they were not able to determine that there was any involvement with this younger woman or anyone in her life, and there was no physical evidence to support anything. Going back to Dexter's car, they found that the driver's seat was pulled all the way back, and it would have been the setting for someone who was about 6 foot or possibly even taller. Dexter was actually quite a short man. He was, a little guy, and he usually had the seat pulled up almost to the steering wheel, and he kind of drove very close to it like this. So they knew that Dexter was not the last person to drive his own vehicle. Police were able to come up with a chronological event timeline, if you will, of Dexter's travels. And this was after they spoke with Dexter's son and some other witnesses that came forward. And then this is that timeline. Dexter left his son's home in Oregon on November 18th, 1985. And he did so in the pretty early morning, and the journey was going to be about 2,000 miles. By the way, this was a journey that he actually had made many times, and usually he would stop off at hotels along the way, but before he left, he told his son, this time, because I want to get there quickly, I'm not going to stop at any hotels, so what I'll do is I'll stop off at some rest stops and I'll take a quick power nap. The car was found at 10:20 a.m. on November 19th, 1985, so this is roughly a day later. Rewinding a little bit, about 2.5 hours, sometime around 8 to 8:30 in the morning, a man by the name of Fred Siegel, who was actually an employee of the rest stop, or a custodian who would take care of and clean, rest stops along the area. When he pulled in his pickup truck, he noticed that there was another pickup truck there in the parking area, but then there was no other cars around, and he didn't see any particular person around. About 8:45 a.m., Clyde Mitchell, another employee for the rest stops in the area, he pulled in to the parking lot. He also saw the mysterious pickup truck along with Fred's vehicle. Clyde would go to Fred and ask him if he knows who owns the truck that was there. And Fred was like, no, I don't know who it belongs to. So Clyde goes back to this mysterious truck and he looks at the back and he notices that it is an Arizona license plate with a Phoenix, Arizona plate holder around it. Later, when questioned, Clyde was able to remember that he believes the first three numbers of the license plate was 147, but he does not remember the remaining digits and letters of the license plate, unfortunately. It was described as a white Chevy Blazer 4x4, and it had wide blue horizontal stripes across it, and this is an image of what it may have looked like. It had a white camper shell on top. It had a cattle guard on the bumper. There was gold hubcaps, fancy. It had chrome bumpers. It had bucket seats. And he believes the windows were slightly tinted. He believes the year of the vehicle was probably like a 1976, 1977. In the back of the truck, because he looked in the window because he was being nosy, because he was curious, he noticed it basically appeared that someone was actually living in this truck. There was like a sleeping bag with pillows, what looked like maybe other clothes were in there. So whoever's truck it was, this was possibly their home, or just they were sleeping in it as they were like on some sort of trip. Now, at 9:30 a.m., just as one of the custodians, I think it's Fred, was about to leave, a vehicle pulls into the rest stop, and it pulls right behind this mysterious truck. The vehicle was Dexter's vehicle, but it was not Dexter in the car. This unknown man, who was fairly tall, they said he was over 6 foot tall, he got out of Dexter's car with these big like plastic containers, and Fred had said, "Are you needing some help? Are you in trouble? Like, what's going on here?" The man said, and he had kind of like a deeper voice, he goes, "Well, I just ran out of gas, so I need you to go get some." Which is weird, because how did he have two vehicles then? I don't know why they didn't ask him, like, how did you run out of gas in one car, but then you had another car? Or like, what? So again, the description of the man was he was about a little over 6 foot tall. They think he was between 40 to 45 years old. He was very clean shaven. He was wearing a big old jacket with a hood over it. So the hood was covering kind of a lot of the face. They said that his behavior seemed completely normal. He didn't seem like he was like scatterbrained, or he didn't seem like he was in a rush, or that he was in some kind of like trouble trying to get away. And then about 30 minutes after the two custodians went on their way, the vehicle was found engulfed in flames. The mysterious truck was gone, and there was no one else around. 4 months later, at a landfill roughly 17 miles away from the rest stop, there was a couple who took care of the landfill, and they go there roughly every week or so. The couple was walking through the landfill, and they noticed some items that appear to be very new, as in they were just placed there, because they had been there less than a week prior, and none of these items were there. But again, it's a landfill, so that's not totally out of the question as to why that may be. But they noticed there was a wallet just sort of right there in the middle of the ground. And the wife, she picked up the wallet and opened it, and she saw a driver's license. And it was a current driver's license, and it belonged to Dexter Stefonek. And this couple were very familiar with the name because the story had been all over the news in the recent months. They then found kind of an open suitcase, and then there were clothing items just sort of strewn about, just kind of seemed to have been thrown out haphazardly, just kind of in the area surrounding the wallet. And then the husband, he noticed a boot, a newish looking boot. And he went to pick it up, and when he was picking it up, he looked, and then he saw under a mattress a foot. A human foot was sticking out from the mattress. Before they did anything else, they called the police. Police arrived, they removed the mattress and miscellaneous junk off of where the foot was, and it was the body of Dexter Stefonek. His body was slightly decomposed, so they had to identify him with dental records. His cause of death was that he had 2 gunshot wounds to the back of his head. And they also noticed that his face was very badly bruised, and it appeared that he had been struck with something, possibly pistol whipped or punched. He had several wounds on his hands as well, suggesting he may have tried to fight off an attacker. So, was this a robbery gone wrong? Well, it wasn't a carjacking because the man already had a vehicle, right? And he burned Dexter's car. In Dexter's suitcase that they found at the landfill, it had money in it. And the suitcase was open, so whoever left it there would know there was money in it, but it wasn't taken. The other weird thing is that Dexter, his body was decomposed enough that it appeared that he had been there the entire 4 months he was missing. So they think that he was killed the day his car was found or the night before, and then he was dumped at the landfill. But the weird thing is that the clothing items, the suitcase, the wallets, and there was a shaving kit found as well, all of that appear to have been placed there very, very recently, likely within a week of it being found. So why would the killer go back to where he dumped the body and risk that kind of thing to throw away the personal belongings? Then why not get rid of them somewhere else? Why not burn them in the car? Why not do anything with them? Why was he holding on to them for around 4 months and then threw them away where he dumped the body? It's very strange. Another very strange clue, about, I think it was like a week or two later, at the Bad Route rest stop in the men's room, there was graffiti left on a wall. And this was fresh graffiti because when police investigated the entire, rest stop when the car was found, there was no graffiti there. And there was no graffiti around the time the body was found until a week or two afterwards. The graffiti said, "Hot Jock shot wad from Wisconsin, 11/85, Saturday the 3rd. Hot Jock sounded to them like maybe a CB or trucker's handle. They didn't really understand what the word wad meant in context here, but the date was the date of the crime. The police investigating this, they firmly believed the killer had come back to the rest stop, put this very strange note on the wall, which I couldn't find any pictures of the graffiti, so I'm not sure if they had evidence photos of it, but they believe that the killer was trying to taunt police. Or it could just have been a random prank that someone decided to do to be funny, but wasn't. They failed at being funny. When the lead investigator was trying to piece together this whole story, they came up with a conclusion that because of the witness sightings of the strange pickup truck with the strange man, with Dexter's car, with no Dexter there at the time, they believe that Dexter probably arrived at the rest stop sometime around 7:30 in the morning, and his eventual killer was probably already there. They theorized that the killer probably tried to ask Dexter something for some kind of help, but Dexter was very, very hard of hearing, so they think maybe Dexter didn't hear what the man was saying and the man got angry, because they believe this may have been some kind of like random rage killing, because they weren't able to piece together any connections to Dexter directly. And given where he was, he didn't know anyone. He didn't have any enemies. He was just an older man living out the rest of his years. So this had to have been a random killing. And they just believe it was rage because the killer got annoyed that Dexter wasn't understanding him or hearing him. Again, that's just a theory they came up with, but it's not like a set in stone theory. But they believe it happened around 7 or 7:30. The man probably forced Dexter to the back of the car, drove out somewhere, shot him twice, and then decided to burn the car back at the rest stop, which I don't know why he would bring it back there. Well, I guess because his truck was there, so I guess that makes sense. But here we are, almost 37 years later, and there are no answers. No one knows who killed Dexter Stefonek. Given the description of the man, there is a solid chance that this killer may no longer be alive. They did try to reopen the case in 2012, but they had very little evidence to go on, and they were not able to come up with anything new or relevant to the case. The only thing they really came up with is that they don't think that this was the only time that this person had killed someone. Someone with that kind of rage who would snap like that over something silly probably has done it before, or Dexter may have been the first and he may have killed, more afterwards. But there was no physical evidence left behind by the killer. No fingerprints, no hair samples, no DNA of any kind left behind. So unless someone has a confession out there, if this person is still alive, there's a pretty solid chance that this case will likely never be solved. The random ones like this are always the hardest ones to solve, because you can't connect the victim to anyone or any event that would provide any kind of clues or context as to who may have killed him. It is possible that someone somewhere out there does know the answers, does know the truth. Maybe someone out there has some information that could help solve this case. And maybe that someone is you. But until then, the case of Dexter Stefonek remains unsolved. And that is it for today's video, folks. I hope you found this one interesting. Like always, if you guys have a case to recommend, please send me an email. I have recently changed the email to mikey@truecrimerer.com. I will put that in the description below. And if you want to know if I have covered a case, or if a case is already on my list, go to my link tree, which will be below in the description as well. And please scroll through that list. It has about 4,100 names. And if the name you want me to cover is already on there, don't worry about emailing me. If you see a name on there and it has a scratch through it, it means that I have already covered it. And more than likely, it was covered over on my TikTok, since I'm still new over here on YouTube. My TikTok is Making a True Crimerer. The best way to search usually is just type in the search bar on TikTok, Making a True Crimerer, and then the name of the victim, and because I usually hashtag both, and you should be able to find it pretty easy. I have like over 2,000 videos over on TikTok, so you could probably spend a very, very, very long time watching videos on that as well. I have about 2.6 million followers at the time of this video over on that platform. So go over there, follow me there, and enjoy. And then lastly, if you want to support me in any way, we do sell merch like this shirt, Making a True Crimerer, and various other merch items that you could purchase, like cups or mugs and a wine glass. We sell a beanie. We sell, various other things. We do ship internationally. So yes, my friend Adam, who makes my merch and designs it, he will ship it to wherever you want. So yeah. But until the next case, True Crimerers, I shall see you on the next one. So until then, ta-ta for now, True Crime Aroonies. Waka! God bless it. Just